With regard to the events of war in Ukraine, the Nuremberg trial was mentioned, resulting in the starting point for my research work, which precisely from the legacy of the trial analyzes the role of interpreters in court proceedings as well as in conflict areas from a social and technical point of view, recalling the birth of simultaneous interpretation thanks to the pioneering work that started at Nuremberg. For the first time in history, simultaneous interpretation was used, thus bypassing other techniques such as consecutive or liaison interpretation that required considerably longer lead times. In fact, at the end of World War II, the victorious powers set themselves the goal of putting the senior leaders of the National Socialist regime on trial. In that context, simultaneous interpretation had the function of solving the multiple language problems that arose in court, as not everyone present was able to speak and understand the same language. It was crucial to ensure that the participants understood everything that was said, as well as the testimony given. The judges and the prosecution spoke three different languages: English, French, and Russian, while the defense and the defendants used a fourth language, German. The peculiarity of the Nuremberg trial was precisely that it represented an innovation in all aspects, starting with the use of languages and ending with the legal one. The media echo then helped to shape what is today's conception of international justice in Western countries. There are many interpreting techniques and modes. Among the most widely used are simultaneous, consecutive, liaison, and relay. There are also many tools that facilitate the performance in the profession. One of the first tools was patented during the Nuremberg trial, the Finlay Ashay phone, a bidirectional audio system that can be compared to headphones with an integrated microphone, as well as modern interpreting booth technology. The interpreter profession is not free from pitfalls and responsibilities that transcend mere linguistic or grammatical knowledge. Peter Less, one of the interpreters at Nuremberg, states in an interview that to become an interpreter is not enough to be bilingual or multilingual. You need to be multicultural. It often happens that, however, that interpreters are wrongly identified with anyone who has a thorough knowledge of a foreign language. This concept is not only false, but carries serious risks since it happens that those who are called upon to work as interpreters have little or no knowledge of the target language and have difficulty understanding certain concepts expressed, especially when it comes to legal language. Nowadays, the idea of resorting to an interpreter to address barriers in communication during criminal proceedings or trials is becoming increasingly popular. The migration phenomenon of the last 2 decades, thanks to greater freedom of movement and residence within the European Union, has involved more and more people. It cannot be ignored that many immigrants, for complex and non univocal reasons, have to deal with the justice system and may need language assistance. The European Union has paid particular attention to the cases and rights of defendants involved in criminal trials in a foreign country, in order to seek the most appropriate solutions to meet and address the challenges related to the phenomenon, including the increased need for linguistic assistance in and out of court, the need for mutual recognition of judgments between member states, and the need to strengthen cooperation in the area of the European arrest warrant. Among the various actions taken in this regard by the European Union, it is necessary to highlight the Directive on the right to translation and interpretation in criminal proceedings. The role of the forensic interpreter is perceived as important, if not crucial, in some situations. As for the expectations placed on the interpreter, these often don't match reality, as forensic interpreter, in addition to the extreme caution required for simultaneous interpretation, must perform a veritable transposition from one language to another of context, evidence, laws, and much more. If the interpreter's task is to eliminate language barriers in order to allow foreign defendants, witnesses, and victims a fair access to justice, then it is of paramount importance to reflect on the role of burden and responsibility of the profession in court context, which usually requires very high professional standards, also from a deontological point of view.